You may not take interest in politics, but politics will take interest in you. So the same applies to AI many times over.
Ilya Sutskever, the man behind the invention of OpenAI, gave a pretty strong speech at the University of Toronto. He expressed great concerns about the upcoming AI, which might disrupt our entire world.
One of the men who built the most powerful AI system on Earth just stood in front of a room full of graduates and told them the challenge ahead is the greatest humanity has ever faced. And a former Google CEO put a 6-year clock on it. Here is everything they said and why it should concern every single person watching this. Starting with Ilya Sutskever, the co-founder of OpenAI and the single most unsettling graduation speech ever delivered at a major university. Ilya Sutskever's warning.
When the time comes, that will generate the energy that's required to overcome the huge challenge that AI will pose. And the challenge that AI poses, in some sense, is the greatest challenge of humanity ever. And overcoming it will also bring the greatest reward. And in some sense, whether you like it or not, your life is going to be affected by AI to a great extent.
Ilya Sutskever did not walk into the University of Toronto convocation to deliver the kind of speech that gets forgotten by the time people reach the parking lot. He came to say something that the people in that room needed to hear, regardless of whether they were ready for it. The moment we are living in right now is genuinely different from every previous moment in human history. Not different in the way that every generation claims its era is unique. Different in a way that the logic of what is being built makes undeniable. AI has already changed what it means to be a student. That shift happened faster than any educational institution anticipated, and it is only the beginning of what is coming. The deeper disruption is not about homework or essays. It is about the entire structure of human work and what remains valuable when machines can do most of it. His argument rests on a single observation that is harder to argue against than most people realize. Every human being operates through a brain. That brain is a biological computer built from organic material running electrochemical processes. If a digital computer can perform the same categories of operation that a biological computer performs, then the conclusion follows logically. Any skill a human can learn, any task a human can execute, any problem a human can solve becomes something as sufficiently advanced I can also learn, execute, and solve. Not some skills. All of them. The timeline is debated. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Nobody agrees on the number. But the direction of travel is not seriously contested by the people building these systems. What makes Sutskever's position remarkable is that he is not a commentator or a journalist or a philosopher speculating from a distance. He was inside the room where the most capable AI systems in history were designed and built. When he says the challenge AI poses is the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced, he is not speaking from theory. He is speaking from proximity to the thing itself. And he added something important alongside the warning. Ignoring the problem does not make it smaller. Paying attention, building intuition about what these systems can actually do today, and generating the energy required to address what is coming, that is the only path through it. The reward for solving the problem correctly, he argued, is proportional to the scale of the challenge. The greatest challenge produces the greatest possible reward if navigated well. Now Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. And a timeline so specific, it stops being abstract the moment he states it. Eric Schmidt. 1 year.
Okay, so we believe as an industry that in the next 1 year, the vast majority of programmers will be replaced by AI programmers.
Eric Schmidt does not speak in vague generalities about AI disruption. He speaks in years and industries and specific professional categories. And the specificity is what makes the conversation uncomfortable for most people who encounter it for the first time. Within 1 year, he argues, the vast majority of programmers will find themselves competing directly with AI systems that write code faster, more accurately, and without the friction of human communication. The question programmers used to ask each other, which language do you work in, stops mattering entirely because the measure shifts from code production to outcome design. The person who understands what needs to be built becomes more valuable. The person whose primary skill was typing the instructions becomes exposed. The same timeline applies to graduate-level mathematics. AI systems operating on a mathematical language that is actually simpler and more structured than natural human language are approaching, and in some areas already reaching the performance level of the top graduate mathematics programs in the world. The mechanism is not mysterious. The same word, prediction architecture, that powers conversational AI applies to mathematical proof structures with a precision that benefits from the formal nature of mathematical language. The scale at which these systems optimize is beyond what human intuition can comfortably process. What Schmidt is describing in the one-year window is not the far edge of AI capability. It is the near edge. The foundation being established right now in programming and mathematics represents the backbone of the entire digital economy. And that foundation is shifting faster than the institutions built on top of it can respond. 2 years out, the picture changes again. And Schmidt has a specific term for what happens when AI starts improving itself without needing human engineers to drive the process. Eric Schmidt, 2 years and recursive self-improvement.
So that's 1 year, okay? What happens in 2 years? Programming plus math are the basis of sort of our whole digital world. So the evidence and the claims from the research groups in OpenAI and Anthropic and so forth is that they're now somewhere around 10 or 20% of the code that they're developing in their research programs is being generated by the computer. That's called recursive self-improvement, is the technical term. So what happens when this thing starts to scale? Well, a lot.
The 2-year horizon is where the conversation moves from disruption to something that requires a different category of thinking entirely. The leading AI research organizations, including OpenAI and Anthropic, are already operating in environments where somewhere between 10 and 20% of the code being written in their own research programs is generated by AI rather than human engineers. That percentage is not static. It scales. When the system improving AI is itself partially AI, the rate of improvement no longer follows the pace of human hiring and human productivity. It follows a different curve entirely. Schmidt calls this recursive self-improvement. The technical term captures something genuinely new in the history of technology development. Every previous technological revolution was bounded by the rate at which humans could learn, build, and iterate. Recursive self-improvement removes that boundary. The system accelerates on its own capacity rather than on the capacity of the humans maintaining it. Schmidt's assessment of where this leads within 3 to 5 years is what he calls the San Francisco consensus, a phrase he uses with some irony to acknowledge that the people making these predictions are concentrated in a single geography and talk to each other constantly. A GI, Artificial General Intelligence, defined as a system that matches the intellectual flexibility and capability of the smartest human practitioners across mathematics, physics, writing, creative work, and strategic thinking, arrives within that window according to the consensus view among the people building toward it. His own position is that the consensus is probably right directionally, but the specific timeline is genuinely uncertain. What he is certain about is that the foundation enabling it is being locked in right now and will not be reversed. 6 years. That is the outer edge of the window Schmidt places on something even larger than a GI, a system smarter than the combined intelligence of every human being alive simultaneously. Artificial superintelligence and the 6-year window.
It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling.
Artificial superintelligence is the point at which the conversation stops being about job displacement or economic restructuring and starts being about something that human civilization has never encountered before. A system that does not merely match the smartest human in a given domain, but exceeds the combined intellectual output of every human being working simultaneously. Schmidt places the San Francisco consensus on this event at within 6 years, driven purely by scaling dynamics that are already observable in current systems. The infrastructure required to reach that point is enormous. The energy demands alone, measured in gigawatts, require the kind of power generation investment that involves nuclear facilities and national-level infrastructure planning. Schmidt was testifying to Congress about this the day before making these statements publicly. The physical requirements of building towards superintelligence are already colliding with energy grids, regulatory frameworks, and democratic processes that were designed for a completely different era of technological development. The core problem he identifies is a gap between the pace of the technology and the pace of the institutions meant to govern it. Laws, democratic processes, and social frameworks evolve through deliberate human consensus building that operates on a timescale of years and decades. The technology is operating on a timescale of months. That gap is not a problem that resolves itself. It is a problem that compounds if left unaddressed, because the window for meaningful governance intervention narrows as the capability level rises. But Schmidt makes one argument that cuts against the most alarming version of the story, and it comes from 300 years of economic history. The jobs question and what history says. Every wave of automation in human history has generated more jobs than it destroyed. The industrial looms that triggered riots in 19th century England because workers believed they were being permanently replaced produced an economic expansion that employed more people across more industries than existed before the looms arrived.
One way to think about the AI that you all know is think of it as language to language. You ask a question, the answer comes back. You ask a question, it can even write code. Nowadays, the models are multimodal. So for example, you can take a picture and say, tell me what's in this picture. Technically, there are APIs which allow...
Schmidt's position is that the burden of proof sits with anyone claiming that this time is structurally different rather than with those who point to 300 years of consistent historical pattern. The more specific and immediate argument he makes involves demographics. Asian nations, where reproduction rates have fallen to approximately 1, 0 or below, face a future in which the working-age population shrinks regardless of any policy intervention. Automation in those contexts is not a threat to employment. It is a survival mechanism for economies that will not have enough human workers to sustain their current output levels within a generation. The productivity amplification that AI provides to the humans who remain working becomes the foundation that everyone else depends on. The argument is not that disruption is painless or that the transition manages itself. It is that the historical relationship between automation and human employment has consistently produced more work rather than less, and that this dynamic needs to be the starting assumption rather than the ending reassurance. Two of the people closest to the most consequential technology ever built are saying the same thing with different vocabulary. The timeline is short. The challenge is real. The institutions meant to manage it are moving slower than the technology demands. And the only version of this that ends well is the one where enough people pay attention early enough to shape what comes next. Whether that is 3 years, 5 years, or 6 depends on variables nobody can predict with confidence. What is not variable is the direction. Drop a comment telling us whether you think the 6-year window is accurate, optimistic, or a number that is already too conservative. Subscribe, because this conversation is only going to get more urgent from here.